Welcome to Singled Out, your ninth best gaming podcast. Please stand by.
Hello, it's Andrew here. This episode is a Vale Patreon episode that's been on the feed for a very long time, and I basically haven't forgotten to have it on the main feed for ages. Personally, I blame Steve for that. So this is a episode where Steve talks to the Langtons about the Smiths and its guide to making the Smiths work and to making your opponent's game as Smithable. Hopefully enjoy it. Sorry there's been no episodes for a long time. Life's been a thing. Hopefully me and Steve will be recording soon. Anyway, enough rambling from me. Now we'll have Steve and the Langtons talking about how they kill Guild Ball.
Just a week or two ago, my poor old Uncle Bill went to kick the bucket and he left me in his will. The other day I popped around to see poor Auntie Jane. She said, your Uncle Bill has left to you a watch and chain. I put it on, right across my vest. Thought I looked a dandy as it dangled on my chest. Just to flash it off, I started walking round about. A lot of kiddies followed me and all began to shout. Any old iron, any old iron, any old iron. You look neat, talk about a treat. You look a dapper from your napper to your feet. Dressed in style, a brand new tile and your father's old green tie on. But I wouldn't give you tuppence for your old watch chain. Old iron, old iron. Any old iron. You look neat, talk about a treat. You look dapper from your napper to your feet. Dressed in style, a brand new tile, your father's old green tie on. But I wouldn't give you tuppence for your old watch chain. Old iron, old iron.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Singled Out, a sometime Guild Ball podcast. My name is Steve Cole. I will be your host for this evening. I've been made aware by Skype that I should alert our guests that we are recording them. So, I'm going to alert you, Francois Langton, that we are recording.
Very much appreciated. And good
I'm
evening.
also going to alert you, Valerian Langton, that we are recording.
That is a useful piece of information to know. Hello, listeners.
So, you might be wondering, why on earth would I get two Langtons on a podcast? Like, who wants this content? Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you may have seen on Facebook, given the release date of these, probably like 7 years ago or something like that, that we ran a poll saying, what guild would you like us to cover next in our guide to the guilds? And the public unanimously said Blacksmiths. And the main comment that's previously been made on this podcast about Blacksmiths was by all-round Guild Ball guru Fraser McFetridge. And the statement he made was, if you're playing Blacksmiths, all extension is overextension. And I thought, who embodies that mentality more than anybody else? And clearly it's you guys. But for those that don't know you, do you want to skip like sort of 30 seconds on your miserable background to Guild Ball?
Francois, am the one who plays on Vassal. So I managed to complete Guild Ball by playing all the guilds all the time. And yeah, that's me, Valerian.
I am the other Langton, the one who refuses to play on the internets because I don't believe it exists. I just clock people out for fun.
So, yeah, that's a pretty good summary. So we're going to talk about blacksmiths, and I think I think in the post like Steamforge games, sort of days of Guild Ball, we don't have to pretend that all guilds are created equal. I think my starting supposition to you guys would be that Blacksmiths are a hard team to play well, but they're a tricky team to learn, but they are very powerful. Like if you get it right, would you guys say that was fair?
I think so. They require you to play in a very different way to every other guild that's out there, just by nature of the master apprentice thing with the auras and wanting to be close to one another. So yeah, it's if you're coming to them from another guild, you're going to struggle to start with because you just don't want to play them like anyone else.
Yeah, particularly there are various things, particularly not having a standard 6 influence captain that will just go and do whatever, score goals or punch someone for 6 influence, and then the synergy between the different masters and apprentices works, as far as I said, very differently to any other guilds, and you have to flex around what you're doing a lot more with regards to captains.
Yeah, they're quite interesting, aren't they? They're quite deceptive because you have that Sentinel Master combination, and you have that basically you're always going to have 3 squaddies who essentially are support models, and 3 squaddies who are output models, and it, as you say, it is quite a shift. It's it's like the antithesis of playing a super solo guild. It's not like playing Shepherds or playing Hammer or playing Thresher. You're not like, I just need to pump all my influence through this one model. Though there is one model they should pump a lot of influence through that we'll come on to. But you're not just looking to pump as much influence as possible through this single model, and that model will essentially win you the game with some support and some sort of defensive stuff.
Yeah, most of the time you're looking to spread your influence out, even if it's just kind of 2 or 3 models providing buffs to the 2 model output models. But it's very rare that you're only putting on 2 or 3 models. Generally, 4 or 5 models are getting influence every turn, pretty much, which is unusual. Most guilds, 3 models are getting all the influence. Blacksmiths, you're spreading it out pretty much every single turn.
Yeah, is that ring true to you, Franco? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Because the way the masters function as setup models, generally, you want 1 or 2 on your masters to do their setup things, whether that's a direct buff or onto one of your apprentices, or if they're just going to go and punch someone a couple of times for a knockdown or singled out or stagger, depending on which master it is. And then you've got your apprentices where you generally want to pick 2 out of the 3 and just load them up, depending on the game state.
I think it's fair to say, I think you're just with the masters, what you're looking to do is generally give out buffs to your own teams. So, things like traditional stuff, tooled up, that sort of thing, or you're looking to debuff the opposition models. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's tricky about them as a guild to play is to get the timing between takeouts and goals and buffs and debuffs right, because it's not like you can't, even the really good squaddies or the really high output squaddies in Blacksmiths very rarely output at, say, the level that, I'll use the example again, say Hammer does. They're not going to kill a model and score a goal as easily as those sort of really high output models do. So what you're trying to often do is gain points while also sort of setting up your next way of scoring points, perhaps in a more considered way than other guilds would do. I know for a fact, playing Alchemist, I'll often just stand Midas about halfway up the board, or playing Miners, you stand Shaft halfway up the board, and you're like, okay, if the situation's right, they'll go and get me points. Whereas I think Blacksmiths, you have to be a bit more considered about it. And I guess the other thing is, what you do have is a lot of defensive tech. There's the very specific sets of defensive tech you can use with Blacksmiths. Is that fair?
I mean, what you need? Are we coming around to the 1-inch widget?
I think we're 5 minutes deep. I think we have to talk about the 1-inch widget.
So
right?
Basically, Sentinel is one of the best rules in the game, and you should be playing at a minimum 1 Sentinel Master every single game. If you can get 2 in there, perfect. Because making apprentices 4 defense, armor 2 makes them incredibly difficult to kill. If you can get them in cover as well, Even better. This is where the 1 inch widget comes into play. 1 inch from cover, 1 inch next to a Sentinel Master.
And that's all you need for blacksmiths.
Yeah, that's a podcast. Basically, stay in cover. And I think I think that can be a tricky thing when you're newer. Is like, because I guess a lot of the like original literature around it was like that the masters are the tough guys, that the hard ones to kill, and the apprentices are squishy. And apprentices are kind of squishy as long as they're not standing by they're like 13 boxes.
They're mostly kind of standard defensive
they're usually like
stats.
1 health lower than regular.
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's like if they're on their own, they're kind of squishy, not in a big way, but like vitriol squishy. But like as soon as they're in Sentinel, they're some of the hardest models to kill in the game.
Yeah.
And what you're basically then making people do is making them have to go for like, they have to fight the masters, who are all basically, sort of 3-2, 2-3, 20 odd boxes.
I mean, the objective behind Sentinel and things like that is trying to make your opponent's options as difficult as possible, trying not to give your opponent an easy target. So they have to go into a master who, as you say, has loads of armor, loads of hit points, or a 4-2 apprentice, which is equally hard to get into.
And I think with that, there's a sort of like, what it means is your tempo is often slightly slower than with other guilds. I think if you're playing, and I'm talking about like playing at a fairly competitive level here, like we'll talk about other ways you can run them, but what you'll often find with blacksmiths when they're playing in that way is their tempo is slower, because actually they can play much more like a season 3 Guild Ball team, because they can restrict what the opposition can output, but they're very rarely, you're not often having like 6-point turns or 8-point turns. You're often like getting a couple of kills or getting a goal, and it's quite sort of like, you're not racking up tons of momentum and you're not racking up tons of points in single turns. But the flip side of that is generally, if you get it right, if you have your 1 inch widget and you're using it properly, your opponent will not be able to score at the rate that they would be expecting to score with that team. So you're sort of often trying to grind the game down a bit.
Yeah, they sort of play the way they look. They're all big and beefy in armor. So yeah, they want to tough it out and grind the game a lot, because that's kind of how they're designed. They're all designed to stick together in a big ball by virtue of the Master Apprentice buffs and Sentinel auras, and you outlast your opponent most of the time. And as you say, just slowly score points.
The flip side of that is there's a couple of things that they're quite vulnerable to. I get like particular models like who can break that way of playing. So Scalpel and Steeljaw are the obvious ones who can break the connect. Basically, they can make your 1 inch widget redundant, and then at sad times you're like, I've got to go to a 2 inch widget. Oh, this is all over. So I think you just like, if you're looking at that attritional style of play, you do have to be aware that there are a couple of models in the game who have very good counters to that. And with you, Franco, saying that they play as they look, I think one thing that is deceptive about them in terms of their cards is actually their kick stats. Like, they have really good kick stats, and so they have the kick stats of a football guild, but it's at best they're like mixed arms with them. They're a funny team because they don't have brilliant ball retrieval, but they're good on the ball. So I guess one of the things, I don't know if you found this, is you can be tempted to try and play football with them and try and play a more tempo-y football game with them, but actually that and you can do it, and it can be quite fun, but it's like quite hard to do at a high level because their ball retrieval's limited.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as you say, they've all got good kick stats, so they can move the ball around really well, and they've got some models with really good movement. Bolt, even Cast, the Cinders are pretty quick as well. Alloy,
Varus.
Yeah, they can go and score a goal, but they've got no ways around close control other than a couple of character plays. And those are risky. You're just scattering the ball. So yeah, it can be tough retrieving it. And it makes you want to play football, which takes you away from some of their other strengths, because ideally a football team wants to spread out so you can cover the pitch and go after the ball wherever it ends up, which is kind of counter to the design of the Blacksmiths.
There aren't many teams that they can play full-on 3-0, 3-goal football against, and that is teams without the close control, without resilience players that they can just charge into and take the ball off without needing to do any other shenanigans, which is very limited guilds in the game.
It's quite you would need a team that doesn't out-tempo you retrieving the ball, but doesn't have good ball defense tech either. So to go 3-0 into, I'd agree with that. And I think also it's a really good point you made, Francois, about them. Like, you can't spread out, you don't want to spread out as much with them, because obviously that breaks down a whole lot of the synergies that you have through the Master and Apprentice rules and Sentinel and all of that sort of thing. And I think also, if you really want to play football, you kind of need an opponent who's going to give you the ball back. But one thing I do think with those kickstarts is, for a fighting team, they're the best fighting team in the game at using the ball for positioning, because they have really reliable kicks. They have models like Bolt who we'll come on to. So they're really good at using the ball to reposition themselves in a way other fighting teams aren't.
Yeah, and they've got several models that really enable that kind of style in Faris and Bolt, and then Hearth as well. Yeah. With Aura, the name of which I can't remember.
Match Experience.
That's
the pony. Yeah, well done, Valerian. Bonus points to Valerian for remembering how to guild ball. So is there anything else in the sort of core mechanics of playing them? Obviously you need to be remembering your sort of masters and your apprentice. What about say drafting or kick receive? Is there particular stuff in that? We'll talk a bit more about the individual models in a second, but because I do feel like they play quite differently, kick or receive.
It's also really ties into the choice of captain, because Blacksmiths have a theoretical vast amount of captain choice. Although realistically, most of them are traps as captains. Generally, receiving, you're playing Captain Faris, because her legendary, giving everyone a free pass, which, as we were just talking about, with their good kick stats, enables them to A, generate all the momentum in the world, and B, with Hearth, maneuver their entire team around, and therefore threaten the kicking model with multiple models, move everyone 4 inches up the pitch. So that's where the kick receive comes in. Kicking, you've got a bit more of an option as to what captains you might pick. Generally, you're looking at Ferrite or Furnace, or in certain cases Anvil, but it's
or Faris again. I think.
Again, kicking, there isn't really a bad choice of captain most of the time. Whereas receiving, you have to really have an amazing reason not to pick Faris as captain, because of that legendary.
That said, there are situations where you can justify picking pretty much any of the masters as captain.
Yeah.
They all have. This is the thing about Smiths compared to pretty much any other guild. There aren't actually any dead picks in there.
Yeah.
There are situational uses for every single model. There's some you definitely kind of take more than others, but there isn't a model in there you kind of go, oh, that's bad, I wouldn't take that. It's more of a, I'd take that for this, but not for this situation.
I remember doing that when we sort of we were hypothesizing before a tournament back in the days when those things happened. And
say that we went to a tournament. Tournaments are alive.
I didn't ask you deliberately about that, because this podcast will go out like a year after we've recorded it. So you could have gone to any tournament in 2021. But I guess I know you played a miserable final against each other. Like it was sort of beautiful.
No, we played a very silly final against each other.
You'll still have played it miserably.
I scored 2 goals. Valerian was about to score a goal, but his dice let him down because he tried to score a goal, so the dice just rejected him.
Note to our handy listeners: don't try and score a goal; you'll regret it.
Yeah.
You're stealing Beard's catchphrase now.
Yeah. It's gone to Australia. You can't litigate for it back. I think you're right about the captain choice. I think my general thinking of it, and we'll come to this, is there's also like the two things I think about with the captain is primarily like is the legendary going to be the beefed up legendary going to be particularly useful in this game? Like that's a big one. Like so, like you're saying about the Faris legendary, but like we'll talk about this a bit. But like you're playing into Corsair, so the Anvil legendary is really good because it can block drags. So that's the main reason you're taking that model usually is for the legendary. And then the other one is probably am I at some point, would 5 influence on this model be useful? And I generally find with that the only 2 I'm really keen on that with is Faris and Ferrite, because they can execute goal runs. I know others can use it, but
Furnace is probably the other one I would actually consider as useful, having 5 influence, because he can actually do stuff. He can actually kill people with 5 influence.
Yeah, that's fair. He can be a good top of the turn because he's the only master with momentous damage.
I'd agree, because I actually think Furnace probably has the best playbook in terms of all-round usage out of the masters, and he's got an 8-inch kick as well.
Yeah, we'll come on to Furnace's specific, occasional amazing goal run, but the momentous 1 damage on Furnace, which we'll move into talking about them in a second. But he's a very good model to go first with, and 5 influence on him can be kill a model, knock some guys down, put out Searing Strike, tool someone up, and he does feel like the other one probably. Okay. Should we talk about the models? And this might be a bit more sort of card ready, because as we said, a lot of what you're doing with Blacksmiths is tech picks. And I think what we'll do is we'll talk about this in terms of master and apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to do some sort of slick system with this, but I'm literally going to go through them in the order they're in the app. But I think maybe we should make one quick caveat on that we'll come on to, is obviously almost always you are taking the apprentice that is tethered to the master. But the apprentices you want most are the ones that aren't tethered to any particular model, which in my mind, the 2 sort of flex apprentices are Vet Cinder and Cast, because they can do the most stuff without being linked to one specific model.
I would also throw Iron as well, where you can take Iron without being linked to his master as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I think
for a specific reason, though.
Yes,
Cast and Cinder are just general. They're just good.
Yeah. So let's go first. Let's talk about. So we're going to do this probably not in order of power. So listener, you might have to stay on to hear about some of the stronger stuff. But Anvil and Sledge. Let's go with them first. Why would you use them? What's specific about them? Are they common choices for you?
They were common. They were before Cast got busted in one of the Steamforged erratas. They were the first names on the team sheet, because Sledge is one of the few damage output models in. I forgot what guild we're playing with. Blacksmiths. Anvil is an amazing setup piece. Knocked down on 1, singled out on 2, pushes for days. Plus, he's a Sentinel Master, and he's really, really hard to kill.
So hard to kill.
2-3 defense, 21 boxes. Frankly, they're just limited models in the game that are ever going to kill him. You take him if you want someone who's really hard to kill, and if you want his legendary for, as you say, provides Stoic for Masters, Tough Hide for Apprentices, particularly useful into teams like Corsair for the Stoic, and Shepherds and Farmers for the Tough Hide.
Yeah.
Sledge is there if you want a model that can charge on someone and deal 10 or 12 damage in 1 charge.
Yeah, I think if you're taking Anvil, you generally are taking Sledge, because with Anvil, he's super good value. Basically, he has Momentous 8 on the top of his playbook, and with Pile Driver for 3 extra net hits, it's, I wouldn't say reliable, but you've got a pretty good chance of hitting that on the charge, and he gets a free knockdown.
Yeah, so, he can do Sledge can do an unbelievable amount of damage. I know you when you do those sort of thought exercises of who can actually do the most damage in the game, but Sledge can just do so much damage. I've at the final event 1-rounded Shank with Sledge. Yeah. Just to take my opponent's turn 1 or 2. And I think actually we're touching on sort of Shepherds and Farmers. I think Anvil and Sledge are particularly good into those teams because also they have so much health. Yeah. And quite low defensive stats. So if you're looking at a game going, I'm really going to need to kill models, and I want to sort of slow up my ability to be killed, Anvil and Sledge are a really good combination for that. And also Anvil does bring with him a move buff as well, which actually not that many of the masters do. And it's move buff you can hit off the playbook, which can be hilarious for generating crowd outs.
Should probably note that Sledge only has an 8-inch threat range. So
Yeah.
he is very vulnerable to control teams in particular, which is his significant weakness.
Yeah. He's got nerfed down to a 1-inch reach, like when Blacksmiths were super OP. So he doesn't see play for me as much as he used to. As you say, I think they were auto includes until those changes were made, and now they're more sort of techie. You know, is it Corsair? Do I want to do tons of damage? Let's talk about the newest additions, which are Culverin and Cutlass, who bring something slightly different, don't they? In the fact they bring quite a lot of range damage.
Yep, they're all about the range stuff and the condition clearing. So again, it's not something you need in every matchup, but having range knockdown, range rough terrain, all this with pretty good range damage as well. And then Culverin's legendary to remove all conditions, and if she's the captain, also to heal, is super good. Couple of other quirky things like the Cutlass dodge if someone tries to take a shot, but it's situational at best.
Generally, you're taking them for the range damage. The knockdown 3 damage at range is very strong. Although remember that all of Cutlass's shots come from the Culverin model. So if you're new to Blacksmiths, that's going to confuse you. Read that card about 20 times.
Culverin wants to go forwards and be where you want to shoot. So it does sort of sometimes pose activation issues, because a lot of the time you want to move Culverin first to get into position for Cutlass to do things. But less of an issue after the first turn, generally.
I will say that Culverin shares quite a lot of design space with Burnish, who will come onto a mechanic because of the condition clearing. And generally, you're taking one or the other in your team, depending on what you think you might need and whether you want Cutlass's ranged abilities as well.
Yeah, I think they can. Burnish and Culverin, you can play them in the same team. Actually, strangely often with Captain Furnace, if you want to just throw a lot of poo at someone, like if you're playing a team that like really likes to crowd up, like having both of those can give you. But I broadly agree with you. I'm just saying you can do it.
That'll make for a really comedy mirror match. They're literally standing facing one another, throwing things,
and clearing all conditions,
and then clearing all the conditions and healing.
Yeah,
I guess where Culverin is quite good as well as against, like, because of her character play is useful if teams, against people like Smoke and Sugar and those sort of models, because she like makes you take less damage from range plays. One other thing, and I think this is generally worth saying about all apprentices, is almost all apprentices in the right situation will do a surprising amount of damage, and Cutlass can do a lot of damage, because actually the fact she has a free 3 damage knockdown as a character play, like she weirdly can kind of set herself up, because she can walk up to a model, get chain shots, knock a model down, and then start going to town on it. And she's got a momentous 3-on-3 and a momentous 6-on-6.
Yeah. I mean, any model with 6 damage on the playbook has got to be considered a damage dealer. And again, you're not hitting the top of that playbook very often, but it is there. Yeah. And especially with Culverin giving out I Spy for the tack buff and the free knockdown from chain shot, it's achievable. Yeah.
Cutlass can do a pretty reliable 12 damage to something, given the knockdown and given the 3-on-3. Like any apprentice, you can spike up high. Okay, let's talk about the original captain, I guess, when they first came out, which is Ferrite and Iron. So Ferrite's the one who got buffed in the most recent errata, not in a huge way. So my gut feeling with Ferrite is she plays as captain when you're kicking, or not at all.
Completely agree. I think she really, really struggles as a non-captain. 3 influence, she just cannot do enough for what she wants to do, which is try and get the ball and score. 3 influence doesn't do enough to do that. When she's got 5, she's got enough influence to charge, acrobatic, shoot, which requires 4 influence normally, which is why she needs to be captain. And the legendary giving everyone within 6 inches +2/+2 move, super good kicking, because that means you can easily get 2 models threatening your opponent turn 1.
which usually Blacksmiths can't do, because what she definitely can do, like a fairly standard sort of kicking ploy, would be you kick with, say, cast, and then basically Ferrite goes, she doesn't have any influence on her, she legendaries, and then she pulls Iron 6 inches up the pitch, and Iron then goes and wails on models. I think the other thing that's worth saying with Ferrite is disarm on one hit is back-breaking for some teams. Hi, navigators.
Yeah, just. I mean, I remember one game I was playing to Hunters, and I was just standing next to Edge the entire game with Ferret having one influence, and he kept putting influence on Edge, and I kept hitting the disarm. And because Ferret has armor too, any model that has limited attack with disarm can do nothing at all to Blacksmiths.
And I think that's particularly true for navigators and cooks.
Yeah.
Like, there are other teams where it's like, but those are teams that really, really hate having tack dice taken off them. So Ferrite can be like a really nasty disruption control piece, just going around binking bits off models.
And then, in a weird contrast to Ferrite, who's the goal scoring captain, you have Iron, who's the ball protecting model. Close control, tough hide, 3 armor if he's in Sentinel. So he just sits there. He's got a good count. He's got a good counter attack with a double push on 1. The only problem is he's only got 1-inch melee, but with close control and 3 armor, and another model standing right in front of him, and hopefully cover as well if you've got your positioning as perfect as it should be with your 1-inch widget. He's very tough to get the ball off.
He's also got tactics and a super reliable damaging playbook. Momentous 2-on-2, Momentous 4-on-4. So if you need to, if someone's just come and trying to take the ball off him, you give him 4 influence, and he punches them a lot for decent momentous damage. He's just a really good. He's slow is his only problem. He's 4/6 move, but he's an excellent ball control, ball holder, and can punch people.
Yeah, he's one of the apprentices you'll see without his associated master, purely for the ball holding abilities.
I think if you see Ferrite, usually Iron is going to actually be quite proactive. Like, because he has a good playbook. Also, he's the hardest to kill. He's the hardest to kill apprentice.
Yeah,
he has tough hide. And 3/3 when in Sentinel is a brutal defensive stat. He also, I guess, for both Blacksmith players and opposition players, unlike other models, say like MASH that the ball gets killed on, Iron wants you to come and stand near him, because he will beat the crap out of models, and he is also really good at throwing stuff off the pitch. So you have to be very careful with Iron. And I think let's talk a bit about what I think. And we called it sort of sad triangle, didn't we? But I think what Rollbetter did coin the term lament configuration with Iron, which I think is you put the ball on Iron, you put him with a Sentinel Master, you put him next to Burnish, and you stand him in cover and you laugh at your opponent. Why is this a thing that's done?
Because it's fun.
Because if your opponent's trying to score goals and you've done that, they can't. It's as simple as that. It's pretty much impossible to get the ball off him unless you have multiple models with a character play that can strip the ball.
We should also note that Iron has battering ram.
Yeah.
So turn 1, he's also useful for pushing 3 or 4 of your models an extra 2 inches up the pitch.
He's also really good for like the flip side of that. He's also incredibly good at pushing enemy models into your scrum. So you have to be a bit wary of that with Iron, that he will suddenly just tootle out of his scrum, push a model in, and then he's got a double push on 1 hit and he's tack 6. So he can move models quite a long way. So, but I think but that is also to play down. Like, I think in a kicking Ferrite team, he is an apprentice that will go and score you points and do damage, and he's quite a good like first apprentice to commit, because as we said, he is harder to kill than the other apprentices. So if you are looking to missile one apprentice into the opposition, which ideally you wouldn't be doing, but if you're gonna do it, Iron's probably quite a good model to do that with.
Yep, agreed.
Okay. Now we're coming on to one who we have said was captain, and I think went from being the least popular Sentinel Master to the most popular Sentinel Master, which probably says a lot about the buffs that Cast got. But let's talk about Furnace, and let's talk about Cinder. Actually, let's just talk about both Cinders when we do this. So we'll talk about Furnace first of all, and then we'll talk about both Cinders.
So Furnace is a really good setup model. He has an achievable knockdown with Tac 6. He has tooled up, and he has Searing Strike. So him tooling up one of your apprentices and then putting out Searing Strike onto a couple of models is a really good early activation. He also, as mentioned, has a 3/8 kick for some reason.
The number of times I've scored goals with Furness, particularly at the end of the game, where you're like, Furness got, and he's got 2-inch reach as well, and attack on 1.
Yep. He's weirdly good at football. Just one of those models, but he's just a really good all-round model in Smiths. Whether you play him as captain or not as captain, he's a Sentinel Master, so he does a bit of everything, and it's hard not to bring him, regardless of which other players you are using. He's one of the first names on there, unless you have a specific reason not to.
He can pretty much do anything you want him to do at any given point in the game. That's how good his playbook is with Tac 6. How good just tooled up is just in general. And he's got how good the back of his card is, Searing Strike, Sentinel, and a useful legendary play giving +1 tack to him or to everyone else around him if he's captain.
He also has one of those like dickhead counterattacks that, like, although he's unlikely to actually disengage a model in a counterattack, doing 1 damage in Searing Strike can be a really, really nasty little counterattack where suddenly a model's like stripped of his point of armor. So he's got a lot going on, and I think you tend to see him in most lineups. Like, you need quite a good reason these days not to bring Furnace. Let's talk about both Cinders. So let's talk about O-Cinder first of all. I'll put my cards on the table. I don't play O-Cinder very often. And that is not a comment on her being a bad model. That's a comment on Vet Cinder being an insanely good model.
I don't think you talk about either of them in isolation, because they're both really, really good. It's very much dependent on what you're looking to do. So Vet Cinder is the damage dealer. Sweeping Charge, Impale, a better damaging playbook, Tac 6 as opposed to 5. She's the one if you just want to charge in and kill people.
2-inch melee as well.
Yeah, indeed. O-Cinder is the utility ball retrieval piece. So she still has Searing Strike. So if she hits someone, she can put that out. She has a free attack if she starts within 6 of Furnace. She has Fast Strike, and if you have instruction on her from Hearth, she effectively gets a free tackle.
Yeah.
From 6 inches away. So if you're looking to get the ball back, and she has Kill the Ball if the ball's on the ground. So if you're going with a more football centric Smiths lineup, she is probably the Cinder for you. Yeah.
Or if you're playing into a more football-y team, like not engineers, don't play her into engineers because they have a lot of close control, but like, into Yukai or, teams without a lot, or navigators, she can be very good because, just threatening to take the ball away from someone from 14 inches away for an influence is awfully good.
It's pretty good.
I think you play O-Cinder if you're looking to score 2 goals or 3 goals, or as you say, if you really, really want to annoy a football team by just taking the ball and going home with it.
Yeah.
An interesting thing to note, you mentioned about Searing Strike and counterattacks with Furnace. On both Cinders, neither of them have a knockdown. So people just walk away from them on passing blows. Mm-hmm. And that's where burning really, really affects people with Searing Strike.
Yeah.
So just because they don't have a knockdown doesn't mean their passing blows aren't great.
Yeah, and I think V-Cinder, like having the combo on V-Cinder of the sweeping charge, which you're usually hitting around about sort of 5 damage on, and then Impale once models are Searing Strikes. So V-Cinder is another good model of, I've got this model safe, they're on 3 health, and they've backed away, and no, V-Cinder's going to kill that model because she's going to throw a spear at it from quite a long way away. So, and she is one of the few models that can actually hit 6-point activations for Blacksmiths because of Grim Vengeance. So she can get a free kick or a free attack when she takes something out. So I love V-Cinder. I mean, she's amazing. Also, I guess the other thing is, and both Cinders are true of this, like they do stuff that you can't get easily from other models. So ball retrieval from O-Cinder and damage from V-Cinder, because remember, you've only really got 3 models, your 3 apprentices to output stuff with. So if you don't take V-Cinder, you're probably only got Cast as your damage model unless you take Sledge. So you have to think very carefully about where your damage is going to come from if you're not taking V-Cinder. Okay.
It's hard to look past taking Furnace and one of the Cinders in your 6.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Totally.
Coming on to a model that it's hard to look past, there are certain situations, Burnish, and who's Burnish's apprentice, by the way?
You never see her.
Cast.
It's Cast. This is like theoretically Cast as Burnish's apprentice, right?
I mean, you play Burnish for the back of his card. Let's be honest here. You play him for reduction, which is let's clear conditions every smelling salts for free every single turn.
But it's better than smelling salts. We should just remember reduction is better than smelling salts because Burnish can use it when he's knocked down. Because it's character trait.
And
so
also
that will catch people out because Burnish can clear all his own conditions for free.
And then you've got reinforced plating against teams such as Corsair, such as Theron, Ballista, teams that want to shoot at you. You just Burnish next to whoever they're shooting at, i.e. iron with the ball, and just say no.
Yeah, Burnish is just a big heap of no. He's like no fun, like to the opposition. He's funny if you're playing it, but he's basically think of the rules that your opposition has. Burnish just says no to them.
So you play him into teams like Alchemist because they put all the conditions out and he just goes no. You play him into teams like Theron, like Ballista, like Corsair that have those ranged character plays, and you don't play him any of the rest of the time.
Which is weird because he's really, really good. It's kind of a testament to how kind of, in a lot of ways, how balanced the guild actually is outside one particular model, which we're about to come on to, where there are, there is space for all of the masters and, all the players. So, yeah, Burnish is really, really good, but you still don't take him all the time because there's other better models for certain situations.
He's the ultimate tech pick. I think, isn't he? Because he doesn't give a lot to your he doesn't actually improve models in your team. He just makes stuff not happen for your opponent. He can put fire in front, that sort of thing. So it's more about when your opponent is asking like a really specific, usually character play or condition related question of you, that you want Burnish. But if you don't need that, then obviously you're usually better taking like a Sentinel Master or Hearth or Culverin or something like that.
Yeah. He's so good at what he does, but other masters bring more all-round abilities.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the de facto captain of Blacksmiths, who's Cast, and we are talking about the nerfed version of Cast after the. I mean,
if you don't play Cast, you're doing it wrong. I don't think that's an unfair statement. She's just that good. And flexible and
pre-community errata, that was 100% true. Post-community errata, that is 99% true.
Yeah, she's not as broken as she's not straight up broken. She's still really good, and I think this is worth saying for V-Cinder and for Cast. Is one of the things that Cast is better at it, but V-Cinder is very good at this. They are apprentices who also do setup. So they output damage, they output stuff, but they also actually set up and enable other models, which other apprentices don't do. They can actually debuff the enemy. So either of them can basically go first without necessarily having to use a master. Now, Cast usually doesn't want to go first, and V-Cinder is probably better at going first in a turn. And that's not because Cast is bad, it's because when you start sticking buffs on her, she goes crazy.
Yep, and weirdly, V-Cinder is a very good model at setting up Cast.
Yeah,
because Cast loves people being on fire and having no armor.
Yeah, and realistically, Cast's actual master is Hearth. because like Hearth can give her 2-inch reach and she can give her an auto hit, 2 auto hits on attack, and it's really important for cast because the long-held debate that we used to have was, my argument was that the season 4.3 or whatever it was, Minx was better than Cast because she had a better first column. Cast's first
You
column,
were wrong.
Cast's first column not good. Cast's
Yeah,
second
but
column,
overall, but in
Unfortunately,
faction,
same.
Cast was better.
Cast's second column being so good.
I mean, Shield Glare has got to be one of the best character plays. -1 attack and, more importantly, -1 defense on someone within 6 inches.
And coupled
Plus,
with
you've got
momentous
damage on
2
it.
damage.
Which is momentous, and because she's got Swift Strikes, that's a 2-inch dodge. It's possibly the best.
Or tooled up. It
it's
could be
possibly
-4.
the best single result in Guild Ball. That 2 damage, momentous 2 damage Guild Ball, because of all the associated things that Cast gets off it.
I think it's the best second column in the game, which is some statement. I think I would agree with you on that. There are better results, but they're higher up the playbook.
Yeah,
that is an incredible second column because, as you say, it's a dodge, it's a character play, and it's damage.
And if she's been given 2-inch melee by Hearth, she's also functionally immune to counterattacks.
Yeah, and if she hits Shield Glare, even if she's not got 2-inch melee, she's often functionally immune to counterattacks because you're often looking at the model attacking her being -2 attack.
Yeah.
So she is another model that can cause absolute havoc in a team. The only limit is, if she had a 5 cap or a 6 cap, she'd be...
Yeah. I mean, we should also probably say she's also got 7-9 move with Swift Strikes as a dodge and a 4-6 kick. So she's also quite good at scoring goals.
Especially because she's got fumble, so she can knock the ball off models and recover it.
Yeah, and go and dodge with Swift Strikes to go and get it. So not only can she deal out the damage, she can go and score a casual goal when she wants to.
And I think usually with her, what you're looking at, though, despite the fact she can definitely get an opportune goal. Usually, what you're looking at doing is sitting on her activate, giving her 4 influence. You sit on her activation until you've given her tooled up instruction and use this, and ideally have a model set on fire somewhere.
Yeah,
and she goes and deletes that model.
Yeah, and probably does some other crazy stuff as well because she's just got an amazing playbook. I agree with you, Valerian, as much as the page would say. If you're not taking Cast, you're doing it wrong. She is an auto include. She's a 4-6 kick as well.
Yeah. And commonly that is your last activation on turn 1 kicking is her with all the buffs up, going and dealing a chunk of damage to someone.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, the 4-6 kick, though, when we come on to the next master, is very useful if you're receiving the ball.
Is this Faris by any chance?
Faris and Bolt. Let's talk about Faris and Bolt.
So we mentioned Faris briefly earlier on as being the kind of default receive kick. This is receive model. Receive captain. Kick, model, captain. I got there in the end. Because of her legendary.
Yeah.
So she gives everyone within 6 inches a free kick and +1 to their kick stat during their activation. So if you can get the ball on Faris early, Faris legendaries, you have momentum generation and movement, out of activation movement for your entire team. So it's really easy to push models up the board, receiving to threaten. So Cinder, Cast, your third apprentice, whatever, whoever you want.
Bring them back.
Yes.
The other, back into your 1-inch widget.
The thing with that is using Vetsens as jog forwards, throw an impale at the kicking model, and then free pass to dodge backwards 4 inches to Sentinel.
Yeah.
Back to Faris, yeah. And then your opponent can't come into you anyway. But they sort of need to go with that model before Cast deletes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Faris, it's a brilliant legendary. She's a 2-3, 19 boxes. She is also really good at clutch scoring goals because she has a 10-inch sprint and 2-inch reach, and she can give herself quick foot as well. So she's one of the models that, as a captain, 5 influence, you can suddenly go, do you know what? My opponent's got the ball safe. I'm going to charge in. I'm going to tackle the ball. She's got 2-inch reach. It's great. She's got Sentinel. She's got Stagger, which is a really good character play on 2 columns. She's tag 6.
She's got really good pushes, so she can push people into your melee into your scrum. She can push people off the pitch easily as well.
And the other one, of course, is she's got Give It a Whack. So her goal threat range is effectively about 21 inches, something like that. Because she can quick foot herself, she can sprint 10 inches, she can unsnap the ball, and then she can take a shot. So she has maybe 18 and a bit.
Yeah, 21.
No,
21
it gives
21.
you 20 and a bit, basically.
Yeah, 20 and a bit. So she is really good for that, like, downtown, close the game out goal threat. The only trouble is she's got 2-6 kick, which can be a bit ropey, but like so weirdly when you're doing that janky thing with her, like when you're using her legendary to move, you do not want Faris to be the model making lots of passes. Which when we come on to, because she actually has bad kick stats. She has the worst kick stat in Blacksmiths, I think.
Yeah, she does. Yeah,
Her and Iron.
With Iron.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, on the legendary turn, it's a 3-6 kick. It's not so bad. But when there's plenty of models around with a 4 dice kick.
Or a 5 dice kick.
Let's
talk about models with
Speaking of 5 dice kicks,
let's talk about the hill I'm going to die on. Bolt is amazing. Like there are very exceptional circumstances for not playing Bolt on the receive. Bolt he's so good.
So particularly with Faris, because obviously the legendary gives a free kick.
I mean, I don't.
He gets a free I'm open from Faris, which means you give him a couple of influence. He can pick the ball up, pass the ball, retrieve the ball again, get the ball back with I'm open for free, and pass the ball again. So for 1 influence with Faris's legendary, he generates 3 momentum.
Yeah.
The first time I used that against someone at a tournament, they just looked at me with, "That is absolute filth. You are a bastard." Was the exact words.
You are.
I know, yeah. But he's so good. But I think the trick is, like, he can score goals from a long way away as well. But actually, what Bolt is really, really good at is generating momentum and moving your team around.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, Franco, you'd never play him without Faris. That because he becomes really influence inefficient rather than really efficient. But he's great at moving your whole team around and changing threat ranges, or moving a model that's in threat range out of threat range, or moving models into it. And the combination of I'm open and his passes means he can actually move a master and an apprentice up. So he can sort of get you into like a safe position. And he's also got a range knockdown,
which is a very silly play that you can do to your own models to knock an opponent down.
Yep. And it's also got a really long range if you get it right, because if you put it on like a 40mm model, like he can stand 4 inches away from a 40mm model, hit that 40mm model, and then knock down a model 4 inches away.
Faris is basically the perfect target for it. She's got lots of hitboxes to start with, so a couple of damage is fine, and she's on a 50mm base. So the range from there is then really long.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I would never take Bolt on the kick. I would take Faris on the kick. I'd take Faris without Bolt sometimes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Sentinel Master with quick foot and a solid playbook.
Yeah. 2-inch melee.
Yeah. There's lots of things to like about her on her own. But Bolt's generally a receive piece.
Yeah, because he wants the ball, and he wants
He also wants the free character play from his master, from Faris.
Yeah, you'd never. Without it, he's a bad model. But with it, he's a very good model. Let's talk about. We've already talked about her a little bit. Casts Master, and I think Hearth is the number one reason I think you don't see 3 Sentinel Masters all the time.
So she gives out instruction and use this, which are amazing. Giving an apprentice +2 net hits is, with the 10 to damagey playbooks that most of the apprentices have, is just amazing, full stop. And giving someone like Cast or even Iron or Sledge 2-inch melee, really kind of good.
Plus the knockdown on 1 with TAC 5 is pretty useful generally.
And potentially 3-inch reach.
Yeah, so she's pretty good at locking models down with Sturdy on herself as well.
Yeah. And the other one you touched on earlier, Franco, is match experience.
Yep. Letting the kicking and receiving models both pass and move really enables the movement shenanigans, especially under the Faris legendary. The combination of those two lets you basically reposition your whole team with ease.
And still generate momentum out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think also what it does allow you to do is, like, as you say, like what you're looking to do. If you're looking to like engage with blacksmiths, you ideally want to engage with either apprentices who can then get safe, so like missile them out, but then they come back because of both dodging in the match experience aura, or a master with sentinel and an apprentice. And sort of Hearth enables that by them just passing to each other and then sort of moving up with your 1-inch widget in hand, making sure they're both in sentinel and both in cover, and setting that up. So I think, yeah, she's excellent. She's one of the masters I would say these days you pretty much always see her without her apprentice.
Yeah, Alloy's in a weird spot. Alloy's basically had his spot stolen by Cast.
Yeah.
Because Alloy, you look at Alloy, it's actually quite good.
He's really good.
Acrobatic, dirty knives, back to the shadows, gets free stuff from being near Hearth, really quick, good kick stat.
Good tackle.
He's limited by his tackle dodge being so high up his playbook. That's what really hurts. That his tackle double dodge is on 5 hits, which even with instruction is far from guaranteed.
Yeah. Even with instruction and anatomical, that is a hard result to hit. I tend to play him specifically into like Vet Rage. Like that's the main situation I would have used him in, like particularly pre-cast buffs. And I think because they're one of those teams that doesn't have amazing options for like defending the ball. I mean, and wants to use it, but even then, like because
he's such an easy drop from my 12 because you have to drop 3 players, which generally means a master and apprentice combo and one other.
Yeah.
Because you can just play his master happily without her apprentice, Alloy is such an easy drop, and then drop another master and apprentice. So it's sad because he is not bad, and I definitely played him pre-good cast, but it feels just easy just to drop him from the 12 entirely.
There's one other situation where I've not done it, but Fraser McFetridge did give me this piece of tech. Given he's better than me at Guild Ball,
he's the person you should have had on this podcast, but he was obviously busy tonight. So
it's almost as if Steamforge Games aren't speaking to us that much anymore. Like, not that Fraser isn't; he's a lovely guy. But one of the things is, like, one of the problem matchups is Scalpel. Scalpel is a problem for Blacksmiths, particularly kicking Scalpel. And actually, Alloy going up, throwing dirty knives at Scalpel when she kicks, back to the shadows, maybe buying a pass away, can realistically put it in a situation where Scalpel suddenly under a pressure to go early, which Scalpel doesn't like. So that's the tech piece I've seen it as, and Fraser reckons that's one of Blacksmiths don't have many good options into Scalpel. So this is not like now Scalpel's doomed, but it's like one of the options that like he put forward as a way of potentially managing Scalpel for Blacksmiths.
I think generally though you use Vet Cinder in the same way.
I think Scalpel still gets to her though, because she doesn't have back to the shadows and the pass.
I don't think you're that fussed. If you do it as the first or second activation, even if Scalpel goes in and kills Vet Cinder, then Cast goes and kills Scalpel, which you're kind of okay with.
The other one you can do it with is Culverin.
Again,
you're accepting that Culverin's going down, but hitting Scalpel for like 5 damage is pretty good.
And knocking her down.
Yeah, and also putting her in rough ground. Yeah. So she has to choose one or the other. Okay, so that's the specific little bit of Scalpel tech. Is that everyone?
Oh, Alloy. The other reason for using Alloy is it's probably the best model in Smiths.
It's a cool model if you like ninjas.
Yeah, which everyone likes ninjas.
The aforementioned Beard didn't like it. Who was the Blacksmiths guy when they first came out? Do you remember? He didn't like it. He didn't like Alex. Doesn't like ninjas, but he's playing
Bushido, yeah, which has got loads of ninjas.
Yeah. I'm assuming he's not playing the ninja faction. Do we have any sort of other general stuff we want to touch on for Blacksmiths as part of this sort of?
Did we mention the perfect positioning and the 1-inch widget?
Yeah. Did we mention that? I think we mentioned
that. Sentinel and cover and don't go forwards.
Yeah. Okay, I think that probably is a podcast of some sort. Listener, if you take one thing away from this podcast, it is buy a 1-inch widget. That's it. Unless you're fortunate enough to already be endowed with one. So on that note, this has been singled out a Sometime Guild Ball podcast talking about blacksmiths. Can I just say thank you once again to my guests, General Franco Bance Langton.
Thank you. Having us on again.
Valerian, Misery Made Manifest Langton.
Thank you, and I approve of the nickname.
Okay, listener, we hope you have, I guess, fun with blacksmiths as a result of this.
Okay, their opponents might not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can, how does a if go? Like, if you can stand still miserably in sentinel and cover about you lose your heads, then you are a blacksmiths player, my son. On that note, that has been an episode. Thank you very much, listeners.